the beginning. It was just a very exciting time for me as a 17-year-old. I had to break down all these barriers of the society we were living in. You had to just do something about it. You were in charge.
We don't care what you think we ought to be doing. We're going to do it our way.
They were definitely the queens of funk. The Slits had attitude.
You had these 4 women that were like sticks of dynamite, and the whole thing was like this feminist explosion on stage. They were threatening to men, certainly empowering for women, and I just found them totally fascinating.
It was adventurous, it was anarchic, and it was female, and I hadn't seen anything like that before. It was something that I wanted to do, and suddenly I've been enabled to do it.
Rock and roll was about men rebelling against their mums.
And the Slits used rock and roll to rebel against everything.
The Slits were powerful ladies that have opened the door for other ladies because people didn't used to associate women with playing instruments.
They were inventing a new kind of music. It was completely outside of rock and roll. It was completely outside of punk.
They terrified people. But it wasn't just like angry, screaming girls kind of terrifying. It was a deep psychology that, you know, some people could not deal with these powerful women.
We had a mission. We were girls on a mission. We were absolutely driven by it, and it was bigger than our petty little squabbles.
We were very strong, all of us. The initial Slits had a potency because of how different we were.
I was so shy. People called me the quiet one. So this was just a whole world opening up for me.
Now, you've got to understand, this is the beginning of the whole punk rock explosion. And everybody was trying to work out their shit. And it sort of said to people, if you were brave enough and you had a good idea, you could be part of this shit too.
So what do I see here? I see a photograph of myself outside the Roxy Club, all blotchy, stained with age. That's why I've got these gloves on, because I don't try to protect these archive scrapbook. The Slits scrapbook that I must have started literally right at the beginning, 1976, 77. We didn't obviously know each other then. But everything started at the Roxy Club in Covent Garden that doesn't exist anymore. And all the bands, this was the first exposure for the new bands to play at. So all of the original punk bands played at the Roxy Club. Don Letts used to DJ reggae music, and the reason he was playing reggae music is because it was right at the beginning of punk. There were no punk records. And on the first night, I was invited to introduce Generation X, the first band that was on. And I was really nervous as I am. So I was like, okay, I'll do it, okay, I'll do it. So I get on and I nervously go, tonight we have Generation X. And then there's some punky girl in the front going, who's that, Wally? Okay, so here we have the first ever gig, first ever Slits gig. Headlining is the Clash, then the Buzzcocks, then Subway Sect, then the Slits. I had literally joined the band 2 weeks before, hadn't played the bass, had to learn all of the songs in 2 weeks.
Clash, Subway Sector, everything. I didn't go to see them, I went to see the Slits because I saw those other bands all the time, and I'd heard about the Slits, and I'd been in a band with Palmolive, The Flowers of Romance, with Sid Vicious, so I wanted to check out what she was doing. I was thinking, I don't know, I keep seeing them running around with black plastic bin liners on, screaming and shouting. They're probably not going to be that good.
Palmolive was starting to try and play the drums and be in a band. And one day, she invited us to the first Slits gig, and it was a life-changing thing. There was just this complete raw energy, and the music. Some people said that it sounded terrible and they couldn't play, but to my ears, it was the most delicious sound. It unlocked something for me, and suddenly, I was standing there thinking, wow, I want to do this too.
The way Palmolive drummed, I mean, she just gave it everything. She was like Keith Moon 10 times over, really, really present, really fierce. Never seen a girl drum like that. I mean, never seen a guy drum like that.
She radiated when she played live. Her eyes come alive. There was something so magical about her.
And Ari, who seemed such a big personality off stage, suddenly was absolutely in her element. Really confident lead singer. The sort of lead singer you feel comfortable watching because you can channel all your own sort of insecurities through them, and they become like a shaman. Whenever me and Sid Vicious watched the band, we'd think, are they as good as the Pistols? And here at last I felt was a singer who was equal to Johnny Rotten, just as exciting, just as irreverent and iconoclastic, and then on top of that a girl. I was absolutely won over, absolutely astounded that night, and I rang them up the next morning from the phone box up the road and said, oh, if you ever want to get together and play, yeah, I'd really like to play with you. I thought you were fantastic last night.
I was just 17, Ari was only 14. It was just pure energy and attitude that just made people go, what the fuck is that? We were coming from a very sort of grey population, just thinking, what is there for us out there?
Men ruled the world. Men in bowler hats and three-piece pinstripe suits. They did rule England, those men. It was a very sexist, very male, very class-ridden society where we were invisible, really. But, you know, because no one was looking, the rapscallions scuttled in. Out of that came music.
We just left home. We didn't worry about where we were going to stay. And you just had to survive. You'd find a way to survive, and you found like-minded people. There was always a way, basically. There was always a way. And the reason I met the Slits, it was because there was the News of the World, which is one of these Sunday sensational papers. And the headline is, these girls make the Sex Pistols look like choir boys. Here come the punkesses. Whoa. The News of the World has been talking to the bands. Our verdict, if the punkesses become a craze, we're all crazy. They have holes in their socks, sex on their minds, and vocabulary is so pockmarked with four-letter words, they seem to say little else. The name of this all-girl punk rock group is so vulgar that we are unwilling to print it in a family newspaper. I was still at college at the time, playing in a group called the Castrators. Suddenly the News of the World are knocking on my door as a 17-year-old. They want to do a newspaper interview. And it was shocking. It was slammed on my dad's desk on Monday morning. I tried ringing him up to say, I'm really sorry, Dad. But he didn't want to talk to me. That was it. They'd already established themselves as a band, but they haven't played any gigs yet.
I played with the Flowers of Romance with Sid Vicious for a whole 2 weeks. So we finished practice, and I'm there in the house alone, and so it's Sid Vicious, and he's acting all macho, and like, I used to wear these mini skirts and then fishnet tights, so of course, you know, like he's hanging out for something, and I'm like not into him at all. He goes, I hate blacks. And I go, I hate people that hate blacks. And then next time we have practice, Sid goes, you're out. So my experience with Sid, it made me want to form a girls group. It was clear in my mind, it wasn't not that I hated guys at all, but I just felt that it would be simpler. I wouldn't need to deal with that kind of stuff. I packed my bags. I just went to London with not knowing anybody, really. I landed in this squad in 101. One of the creative projects that we rallied around was the 101. Woody was the lead singer, and very soon I was living with Woody, who became Joe Strummer. Joe wanted to go and be part of the punk movement. He cut his hair and he spiked it, because it was all about changing image, changing looks. So I adopted Palmolive. So when the punks exploded and everybody and their mother was having a band, you know, like I want to have a band.
It would have been summer of '76, I guess. And Paloma came up to me and said, "Do you know anybody who plays guitar?" She said, "Do you?" And I said, "Yes, a little." And she said, "Do you want to be in a band?" And I said, "Okay, we'll try it." I vaguely remember meeting Ari at a Patti Smith gig and thinking she might be a little bit too young and brattish to pull it off.
All the attention was on Patti Smith, but my attention was on Ari, because Ari was on the floor shouting at Nora, her mom, effing this and effing that, you know, like, and she was shouting and she did not care about anything. So I felt she had no inhibitions. And so I said she would be great for a front person in a band, in my band. So I went and asked her, I said, "You want to be in a group with me?" We had a bass player at the beginning, Susie Gatzi, and she wasn't there very long.
I wasn't getting on too well with Ariana, and I think she wanted Tessa to be the bass player. So I just left and did my own thing.
So it was Kate. Kate was the one that came up with the name, the Slits.
The name of the band shocked a lot of people. It called to mind violence for some people and pornography to others. It had a lot of different meanings depending on who you were. And we did want to change people's image of what females might be.
We had seen an article in the News of the World with the castrators. So we grabbed Tessa from there. So it was Kate, Tessa, Ari, and I.
I hadn't finished my college course, but who wouldn't want to be involved in something more exciting than finishing your exam stuff? So I blew that, told the college I'm leaving. 2 weeks later, we're on stage. First gig. Kate taught me the bass lines when I joined the group. So Kate, to me, was very kind, but obviously I only knew her for a short period of time. She did 2 gigs with us, and shortly afterwards she left, or was thrown out, however you want to put it.
Viv and the others got together and they decided to be a band. And I was told that I was no longer in the band. And then, almost immediately afterwards, they asked me to be the manager, which I turned down. I felt rejected, but, you know, life is full of rejections.
At that time, the White Riot Tour comes up and the Slits are offered a spot on the bill. Another brilliant lineup. Clash, Buzzcocks, Slits.
At this period, Don Letts attempted to manage us, and it says here, June the 25th, 1977, Melody Maker.
I went along to a Slits rehearsal in Daventry Street and me and Ari absolutely clicked. Very, very different to rehearsing with Sid Vicious. And I'd rehearsed with Johnny Thunders a bit as well, and I'd felt very awkward and very out of my depth and didn't really flow. But the minute I hit that basement with those girls, it was absolutely meant to be. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that was it, we were a band. The Slits were offered the White Riot tour, and I'd only been with them 3 weeks and we could barely play. There was no question of saying, no, we're not ready. It was like, yeah, go for it, go for it. And then the next thing you know, we're out in front of 1,000 people. It's all so new.
The excitement, I mean, people were so excited to see us, and we were so excited that they were excited. It was just such a high. But we didn't really know how to play, so sometimes we would be playing different songs. And we couldn't even tell sometimes. Sometimes we could tell. We were just together for a gig. Now we were in a van with the Clash, driving for hours.
It was exciting and we were on the bus every day, but we were very much kept under heavy manners. Ari was not to leave her seat or speak on any coach journey.
Bus driver on the White Riot tour, Norman, he had to be bribed to let them on the bus. And they didn't do anything to him directly. He was just so threatened at some sort of deep psychological level. Just their presence, just the look in their eyes before they even opened their mouth, you know.
It kind of got to us a bit, actually. It made us act badly, as it does. You know, if people expect the worst of you, you kind of give it. The other bands, and certainly their managers, became like the establishment to us.
When we got to somewhere, like people would say, they're too outrageous. I remember being so disappointed because you get to a hotel, you want a party, and no, you have to go to the rooms. Of course, we didn't really listen to them too much, but the fact that we couldn't was like, come on. The guys were just as bad, but we were more like shocking to them, I think, because we were girls, and they didn't expect that from a girl.
There was one incident where we walked into this hotel and graffitied the Slits. As soon as we walked into the hotel, they refused to allow us to stay in that hotel just because of this thing written on my guitar case. We sort of signed in and then signed out straight away. So that was groundbreaking for us. That tour was, thank you so much, The Clash. And here we have, is this Ari saying, we're not musicians. The ultimate test of creative talent and potential is the extent to which an artist puts across original ideas in a manner transcending the limitations of technique. That the Slits do this is beyond question. Only spoilsports could dismiss them as a joke. Do they consider themselves musicians? No, not at all, says Viv. And that's not because we can't play brilliantly. It's because if we do, we'll be misrepresented. We've heard about musicians. And anyway, is that what we play, music? Says Palmolive. If men don't like us to be free, that's their problem. If they don't like it, they can fuck off. Ari up quote. The reason why there's hardly any girl rock and roll stars is because most girls are not strong enough in their own minds.
Let's talk about the lyrics of their songs.
All right, let's do the Splits, shall we?
Yeah. Let's do a split. It's about splitting up with a boy. No, it's just about, you know.
Yeah, about guys fucking... Hey, so drummer and bass player. Let's do the Split is about fucking guys fucking us about, and we tell them to fuck off.
We were crazy and people knew that. That's what they were expecting, and that was fine with us. That was our life, but then we would finish the gig and then go home, and then the next day we would do it again. So our whole life was the group.
The Slits were forming their own constituency and their own aesthetic, and it was truly original.
When the four Slits walked along, we were like a gang. You know, we could almost practically hear our theme tune behind us, you know, jungle drums and everything. But because of how we looked, The hair and everything, they couldn't tell if we were male or female or even human. And they were scared. They were scared of us. These guys didn't know whether to fuck us or kill us, basically. They were so confused.
You have to understand that when we walked the street, people did not look like the way we looked. Your outfit had to express this new vision that we had. Like you wanted to shock people out of their complacency. So we will have people coming to hit us, or people just going to the other side of the street just because of the way we looked.
England is a sort of country of little factions. They follow their band, but we weren't following a band. We were the band.
Nowadays, you can wear whatever you like. You can choose your look, you can choose your outfit. But back then, society told you what was acceptable.
Girls were supposed to not go out until they were ready. And being ready meant everything in its place, the makeup perfect, the hair perfect. Calm yourself down, go out. The Slits, they were wearing chaos and they were being chaos. Their fun was more important than what anybody thought about it, especially what men thought about it. You're talking about a generation of young women who'd been brought up to feel that everything they did was wrong unless they did the right thing. And the right thing is being quiet, being biddable. If you jumped off that railway track, you jumped into ugly territory. Those bobs, they hurt the people that they were aimed at. They were intended to hurt and intended to make people feel wrong. Part of what was written about in lyrics and part of what was articulated on stage was a celebration of that wrongness.
It was girls reclaiming our own space and identity for ourselves.
Because everything was up for grabs. Presenting yourself in a truly original way that looked as topsy-turvy as their sound sounded, it was like a new paradigm for females. So they were provocative, they were outrageous, but also they were having fun because they hadn't been manufactured, they weren't having to please some usually 99.999% of the time male boss, you know. They were presenting themselves and pitching themselves the way they wanted to, unreconstructed, without giving a fuck.
Here we have Palmolive, Viv, Ari, and what's interesting about these pair of jeans I'm wearing, you see it has a slit in the pocket at the back. Now these are the jeans that Ari got stabbed in. This guy just comes up behind her and just slices her through the coat, through her jeans, and says, "Here's a slit for you." And he's gone. These were violent times, which we have to remember. And it took a lot of nerve to dress the way you did and walk down the street on your own, as we all often were. I think it's just human nature. People love a fight, don't we all? Okay, here we have the good, the bad, and the ugly. Which one do you think the Slits were? The ugly. Would you describe yourselves as a punk band? Chorus. No! Viv. We're just the Slits. We are what we are, like the Sex Pistols are what they are. The newspapers invented this punk shit. They've got to label everything. They call us punkettes. What kind of shit is that? We're just ordinary, normal girls. That's why we want to be in 19. Because we think that fashion is crap. We want to show girls that you don't have to be pretty and skinny to get into a group. You can be just what you are. You can be wild-looking people with personalities and not stereotypes. Why did you choose the name Slits, Palmolive? It's a vicious name. Ari, it has 3 meanings. Slitting someone open, a slit in the side of a skirt, and ... We all know what that is. Etc., etc., you know.
I had no role models as a female musician. There was no one I wanted to be. So much so that it didn't even occur to me to even be a female musician. The Kinks went to my school and Rod Stewart went to my school. It never occurred to me to think I could possibly be in a band myself. I was mad about music from the age of 9 or 10, which in the 60s and 70s was unusual. It absolutely, immersed in music as I was, never occurred to me to be in a band until I saw Johnny Rotten on stage. And then it was like a huge whoosh of everything, bang, 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 coming into my head at the same time. So I watched this sort of androgynous guy from North London like me, comprehensive state schooling like me. The only thing was he was a boy, but he was so sort of androgynous and white and limp in a way that I think I managed to overcome the fact that he was a boy and think, I'm going to buy a guitar. And I went out the next day and bought an electric guitar, even though I couldn't play. White Riot tour, we were all fired up and excited, and actually lots of things were going on, but there was a slight shift where the Pistols camp, which was Malcolm really, was becoming commercial. It shifted from them being colleagues in crime to them being the establishment. The Slits went through 13 managers in our time. Some lasted a few weeks, some lasted a few months, some ripped us off, some ran away. And always picking us up when it all went wrong, and it always went wrong, was Nora.
Nora's house in Shepherd's Bush was a great meeting point for various members of the whole original early punk movement from 1976. A lot of interesting people passed through that place, and Nora was excited and happy and welcoming to all these people. Nora was a German promoter of music. She worked with groups like The Cream and Jimi Hendrix, which meant Ari was in contact with all these people in her early childhood.
Nora's house was a place we came together. It was just a safe, clean place, some meals provided. We were horrible to her, and she was so nice to us. She had the ability to just laugh and roll with it and ignore it.
Every Christmas, she'd buy a really big Christmas tree and put real candles on little silver holders with, you know, flickering real lights. She was like all of our mother, in a way.
I think to Ari, the Slits were like her family. We were like the sisters she never had, being an only child, so I think that made Nora happy. And I felt safe as well. I found my people kind of thing. Because, as I said, I'm quite a solitary person. So this is a show we did where you're trying to mix reggae, funk and punk. The first time in the UK, 3 different cultures meet live. So we were trying to just mix all these different types of music and hope that it would work. And sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't, but the connection with punk and reggae is huge.
Put on the record!
I put it right where the lines.
Oh, come on.
Right.
The reason the punks like reggae was the lyrics were about shit they understood. I need a roof over my head, money in my pocket, chant down Babylon. Music that spoke about how we could live and how we could do it together. And yeah, they didn't mind the weed either, you know.
The thing is with the Slits, the way we played reggae, we filtered it through our music. And we filtered it through ourselves and our lack of technical ability. For us, it infused our whole sound.
In the 1950s, there was a huge influx of immigrants from the Caribbean to come and work on the underground or do the jobs that British people didn't want to do, thinking they'll have a bright future here. And the attitude they got from the general population all over England was extremely racist. So they were a rebellious generation. We just happened to collide at that point in time.
If anybody defined the punky reggae party that Bob Marley sang about, it was the Slits, particularly Ari, who was the first white dreadlocks that most people had ever seen. She even shocked the very cool Bob Marley. The first time I heard the song Punky Reggae Party, it mentioned the Slits. It had that line, which later became the Damn, the Jam, the Clash. In the early versions, he talks about the Slits. So they had a lot of confrontation everywhere they went.
As a girl, it was difficult because we were brought up to be self-conscious about how we looked, to be feminine, to smile, and any scrutiny about us and our love lives and our bodies was very painful to bear. The Rastas were just sort of beginning to come up in London as well, and they were very into women being at home and not showing their hair. So just as I was beginning to branch out and feel like I really looked like myself for once in my life, these men that I really quite respected were sort of putting it all back down again. So the scrutiny was even more painful. The youth of those 70s were nothing in society. Girls until then had been terribly, terribly self-conscious.
I can't do it, I'm not a fucking genius.
Until that moment, you never questioned a dentist, a doctor, a headmaster, a teacher, anyone male.
All right, put it on again, I've just finished. Come on then.
Feel and look back on that time as an extremely painful time for me as a very self-conscious girl, and someone who helped me through that without actually doing anything but just being herself was Harry.
When you're hustling me skin.
So that's the four original Slits at their best, I would say, at our peak.
The music slowly got a little better. We started to play the same song here and there, you know. People were very thrilled to see us, and the papers always gave us really good reports. We were very strong, all of us, and I think that initial Slits had a potency because of how different we were. We were still like excited about each other and being in the band, and we felt it with the same intensity.
And here we have Don Letz's The Punk Rock Movie. Because Don, from the beginning, was documenting everything on his Super 8 camera. He caught everything. We were rehearsing for the White Riot tour. So for some reason, don't ask me why, I just decided to take a pill. Someone went, oh, do you want a pill? I was like, yeah, why not? Just like half an hour later, just before the rehearsal, I start feeling a bit woozy, like, whoa, whoa. And they're just furious with me.
Fucking youth know, crap. She can't play, she can't know, bro, she doesn't know what she's doing, and then she takes the fucking drugs, right? I mean, she doesn't concentrate, she doesn't try. You know, she doesn't even try to play the bass, the records, you know. She's not into reggae, she doesn't like reggae.
The women we got it. We bought it for her. We went to the show, we tested, we saw which one would be good.
Palmolive's saying, what's wrong with her? You know, we got her the bass, we got her the equipment. Well, what does she think she's doing? Yeah, she's useless, whatever. And then I realised I am on the verge of being thrown out of the group. There's no going back after that. So I just rehearsed night and day on my own, make sure I know the songs back to front, make sure there's no way they're going to throw me out. I cannot lose this opportunity. And what happened? I rehearsed so hard, I convinced them to keep me.
We started off all very naive, you know, full of energy. We were always very, very close. We were like sisters and we bickered like sisters. But anyone threatened us from the outside and we would have killed for each other, literally would have killed. Especially for Ari, who I felt incredibly protective of, even though she drove me the most mad.
We were very different, but we really got on well. I think we were a good balance to each other. I mean, we were so opposite to each other. That energy that we created together was very potent and very timely.
And there were times when it was so difficult and I so wanted to leave, but I knew with them, I was a bigger person. We had a mission. We were girls on a mission. We were absolutely driven by it, and it was bigger than our petty little squabbles. This mission that we were on sort of obliterated any of the little petty day-to-day problems that we had amongst each other. Losing Palmolive probably took a bit of that away. That was quite a big change.
The Slits were high octane. On any given day, some explosion could have happened that could have changed the landscape. And it quite often did. I mean, one moment Palmolive was there, then she wasn't.
It said Slits, last gig with Palmolive. Last year, best ever. After that, Palm joined Raincoat.
Towards the end of my involvement with the Slits, was some things that I started questioning, almost like looking at a punk a little straight in the face and saying, you know what, there is more. And I didn't feel the group could accept my questioning. And so then suddenly it felt like instead of being free, it was actually very restricted. And so Tessa came up to me and said, you're not in the group anymore. I think it was sad, because Tessa was my closest friend at that time.
It was obvious within the group that, I hate to say it, that we needed a new drummer. And this was very traumatic to me because Palmolive was my best friend at the time. We shared a squat, and I was appointed to tell her that she was not in the group anymore. And it just totally did me in.
And so I figured like I'll be in another group, like with the Raincoats, I joined the Raincoats. And then really it came down 6 months. Then it didn't take me that long. Then I was able to say, no, I'm not doing this. Going out of punk, it was almost like a withdrawal. It really felt like this barren emptiness. That was every day. Wake up, it was the Slits or the Raincoats. So suddenly, like that not to be there, I just wanted to leave London. At that time, I started thinking, what about spiritual things? If God is there, I want to meet him. So we packed our bags and we left for India, and we went to this ashram, and we had our adventures there, but I did not feel the guru was God.
We decided, the Slits decided, we wanted to be on Island Records. No other record company would do. We thought nothing was going to stop us.
It's interesting they signed to Island Records because it's got a really interesting tradition of picking up on things that are sort of left of centre. And no one else would touch that band. And Chris saw their potential. Obviously, this is a man that passionately loves music. Grace Jones, Bob Marley, Burning Spear, John Martin, Roxy Music, Traffic, King Crimson. I mean, I ain't even touched it. He knew not to fuck with an artist. He let them do their own thing.
So best choice ever to be signed with Island, and we had complete creative control in this contract. Also, it led us on to being able to work with the infamous dub maestro Dennis Burwell. How better does it get?
They were being hailed as the female version of the Sex Pistols. Everyone was looking at them to be the premier punk female band. So I leapt at the opportunity to help them to get there. I instantly detected their love of reggae.
Dennis was a hard taskmaster. It had to be perfect. For Viv and me specifically, it was kind of torture, but you just don't give up until it's perfect.
We had a drummer, Budgie. He was fantastic, really, really light touch. Very open to all Ari's suggestions. Not easy, you've got a 15-year-old girl telling the drummer what to play. Ari, out of all of us, was the most musically adept. She really came into her own in the studio. She was just firing, she was in her element. She couldn't be trapped or trained. She was too big for it all. But music is so huge, it's like an ocean. She could pour all her energy out into this ocean. There was no fighting amongst us, no ego problems. We all just wanted to serve the song and serve the album.
When Cut came out, you didn't really believe it had happened because there was such a lot of upheaval and turmoil up to that point that you never really believed that they could actually end up committing to vinyl. And when they did, it's this kind of historical document that's out there to kind of see a different way to do things, man, you know what I mean? Something that's off the scale, operating in its own space.
I was pleasantly surprised and happy when I read that out of 100 albums that the British music press considered to have structured and shaped the punk scene, that album came in at #2 after the New York Dolls.
This sounds like me in hindsight trying to make it all marry up politely. But I do remember sitting on the grass with Viv, Tessa and Ari. And I felt like that to finish this album, there was something more intense going to happen. They were either going to completely implode, explode, or kill each other, or it was going to go into another world. And I think it would have been very much a private world of 3 girls. I suppose the other way of looking at it is what would have happened had I stayed. There would have been a very different album sleeve. Maybe. And I wouldn't have, spent the next 25 years in Susie and the Banshees. But I don't think it was all continued on into the sunset easily. After Cut, I mean.
Viv Goldman took the picture in to get a review for the album. And when they saw the cover, they were like, oh, but they look so ugly and disgusting. We don't want to review that. We don't want to put that in our paper. But the worst thing is the criticism that followed is that people thought, oh, the Slits aren't playing on that record. No, it must have been Dennis. It must have been Dennis.
There was such hostility at that time because they were in an intrusion. Women were supposed to know their place, and their place was to be wearing clothes that some other bloke dictated, singing what, some regular guy wanted them to sing, and, just shutting up and just popping out, on order, not determining themselves. It's always said there is nothing new under the sun. And generally that is true, but the Slits really were something new. The Slits came forward with something completely fresh. Prior to the Slits, there was no self-determined group of women sounding like the way they wanted to, dressing the way they wanted to, living their lives how they wanted to. But the fights and the endless conflicts that the Slits went through were part of them being a harbinger of a new generation.
By this time, the Slits had totally freed themselves of any of the initial punk shackles. They were this avant-garde, Afro-jazz, punk motherfucking group that no one else had touched.
We started to branch out. We were no more sort of just hanging out with rock bands or whatever. We were finding our own way musically. We'd met the pop group. I started to go and see improvised music with Steve Beresford. And bit by bit, we were trying to put together a tour of England, and we thought, well, we're not going to just do a boring old tour where we go out playing the same old songs every night. If this tour is going to be paid for by us and it's going to cost us money, why not make it a amazing learning experience for us? We'll get 2 other bands, Don Cherry and a reggae band, Prince Hammer, and the 3 of us will rotate. And no one had done that before, and no one had mixed those genres before. day, Don Cherry turns up with this 14-year-old girl with dyed bright red hair and cool clothes. And that was it, a friendship made for life there. So lovely for Ari to have someone around her own age for the first time, and they were inseparable.
I just remember being kind of almost unable to speak. I was so shy. I've never actually heard anything that sounds like this. Even though I felt very green and very young and very awkward in the beginning, felt at home. I think that a lot of the crowd in a lot of the places didn't really know what had hit them.
It caused conflict. I mean, on the tour, we encountered people spitting at Don Cherry, throwing things at Croatian Rebel.
We arrived in Newcastle, and there were like skinheads or some kind of racists outside the hotel.
It was absolutely mad tour, you know, and that, basically, if you look at it, was setting the stage for that whole punky reggae party, having people from who shouldn't even perhaps be on the same stage together, being on the same stage.
The whole thing was kind of like, I guess, like kind of a dream come true.
I think if the Slits had made an album that had been giving the public what they, you know, what they thought they wanted, which had been like, you know, the tempo of Shoplifting or whatever, they could have been a massive energy guitar band, but the Slits didn't want that. There's a Jamaican saying, each one teach one, and then you pass on some good spirit. That's how music's supposed to be. And where the Slits were aiming was really special.
They listened to lots of different types of music, and they managed to filter that into something that made sense for them. Our artistic direction was diverse, and I think people sort of found it hard enough to take the fact that this was a women-led punk band.
We were having a hard time in the band, we weren't being taken seriously. Island had chucked us off their label for absolutely no reason whatsoever. We delivered a great album. They just, you know, weren't interested anymore. Got a few new A&R guys in, didn't want us.
When I started working with the Slits, they were already not all female. They'd already had Budgie, and then later Bruce and Steve Beresford.
After Paloma was gone, it was really, you know, it was the three of them. And I was there with them, but I let them make those decisions. Do you know what I mean? It was their thing, you know?
It didn't mean anything to me. I mean, they're boys, they're girls, you know, so what? So what? We'd already decided anyway, there was no boundary between male and female. He was the best person for the job. And he's a really nice guy. He had an androgyny to himself at that time that enabled him to really relate to females.
When Palmolive left, sort of qualitatively, it felt a bit different because it was no longer all females. But at the same time, the men that they brought in were like what you might call new age, not uptight, the non-sexist man. So I think in a way they lost something by not being that unique or very rare all-girl thing, but they gained something by being more tribal and showing that it's rubbish to say that we regard men as the enemy. We're just a new sort of tribe striving for an equality that's almost unknown in the regular world.
I think we wandered around as a tribe because we travelled around as a troupe. It was self-sufficient. It funded itself. It was a sort of a collective endeavour, a collective of people cooperating with each other to make something marvellous.
Bruce Smith, the drummer, went between the two bands, the Slits and the pop group. The pop group were important in turning all of us onto free jazz and that free jazz approach to life, where, you know, they're trying to find a, you know, emotional truth through not fitting into the cell blocks of 4/4 rhythms and bars.
By 81, when everyone suddenly was about earning money and dressing in designer clothes and buying a house and getting a mortgage, that 76, 77 scene, sort of looking back on it, felt a bit naive and aggressive and old-fashioned and out of place, and no one respected it.
The Clash reached commercial success. And the Sex Pistols' demise, as we all know, what happened to poor Sid. Anything bright and powerful is going to burn out quickly. You just keep on developing. I mean, who wants to be stuck under the label of punk? It was dead by then to me. The more commercial side of things got squeaky clean, and it was all, the 80s generation was all me, me, me.
After Ireland, who dropped us for God knows why, we recorded our next tracks, went to CBS, and they signed us.
Return of the Giant Slits.
When the Return record came out, the media didn't know what to do with this record. You have world music in there, you have jungle beats, very adventurous, very experimental, and still very listenable. Return of the Giant Slits probably is the record responsible for bringing world music into new music. It doesn't have any boundaries at all anymore. They found a way to destroy rock and roll. It died the moment it was released, and that's the big tragedy, basically, about the Slits.
Slits split. The Slits have apparently broken up some 5 years after their formation as Britain's original all-girl punk group. Lead singer Ariup has already left the country for an indeterminate stay in Jamaica. The future of the other two Slits remains uncertain. The split comes shortly after an extended UK tour by the group to coincide with the release of their debut album and single on CBS Records. When approached by NME, Viv Albertine confirmed that the threesome had no definite plans to work together again, and that they had formally abandoned the Slits as a working unit. Definitely the end of an era as far as I'm concerned.
We started to feel like we were sort of battling uphill in a way. We always were, but you know, this is 3 or 4 years in now, not being taken seriously, and then you can feel it shifting, they're finding something else more interesting. Oh, girls in a band, that's not interesting anymore. We were never that. But they just thought we were a fad. I just sort of moved home, I started dressing in brown clothes, I dyed my hair back to brown from blonde. I was just very, very hurt, like I split up from a huge family.
Then Ari had her twins, became a mother, and we all just went our separate ways.
It was the end of that phase of the bold adventure where 4 wild women set to take on the world of pop music. Did they win? This funny thing, at the time it didn't seem like they did, because they were so firmly stomped from history, you know? The herstory was erased. Hidden from history, but it always happens. It happens all the time.
After the Slits split up, I totally lost interest in music. And that's where, unfortunately, I fell into the terrible path of heroin. Naughty me. We had to go our separate ways and go on our separate journeys. You had the security of a group before, and that was your identity, and then you had to find your own personal identity. And I had a child myself, and the day I gave birth to my daughter was the happiest day of my life ever.
I had started a family with Dave, my husband, and we had 2 kids. I had no answers for them, and that took me to that experience of understanding that there is a God, but we don't understand him as much as some people think we do understand him. I think he's misunderstood. He is a revolutionary. A lot of the things that I long for, I have found in the person of Jesus. I think the fact that we did what we wanted to do was a positive thing, that we weren't afraid to fail or not be able to play our instrument. We wanted to do it, so then we did it. So that whole thing, I can apply in the classroom when I teach little kids. I can say, you can do it, you want to do it, you can do it.
Okay, so who wants to do the Agent 007? Estos niños parecen muy buenos.
So to me, the message is, love people, really give yourself.
Hola. Okay, muy bien. Thank you.
I come to a place that I feel very liberated in the sense that I can have connection with the group, but I also feel you need to keep your person, who you are, and be true to yourself, because in the end of the day, you live your life.
Something quite strange happened. I went to my daughter's dead father's gravestone. I was just feeling a bit lost. And I just spoke to him and said, I need some guidance at the moment. I just don't know which direction I'm going in. I hadn't seen Ari for at least 15 years. Occasionally, Ari would send me cassettes she'd made off the radio from America or Jamaica. She was there at my daughter's birth, and I didn't see a lot of her after that. So she just suddenly came back into my life like a hurricane, you know? It was just so exciting. And then she just asked me, hey, let's get the Slits back together. We contacted Viv, but she wasn't interested and was quite against the fact of a reformation. Kind of made me feel a bit anxious because I wanted to get the approval, obviously. But Ari just said, look, we're going to do it anyway. And then she found 2 guitarists on the same day in Ladbroke Grove. Then we had to audition for a drummer.
Anybody ever heard of the Slits? I want to do it so that we're really going to end up shoplifting something from Selfridges quick.
We did our first gig at a store in London called Selfridges. And the New York Dolls were playing the night before, and the Buzzcocks were headlining.
Pressure was absolutely huge. People were queuing up round the block because the Slits hadn't been seen for so long. Not just the reputation of the Slits as was then, but the whole reputation of the Slits before was on the line.
I was just so nervous. I was literally shaking before I got on stage. Because I hadn't been playing for years.
I don't think the Slits ever got the credit they deserved. They were a very influential band and influenced a lot of people to this day still. And that's why I think she wanted to get back together, just to show people they could still do that.
Ari needed to do it. It was her baby that she needed to revive it. She just wanted to get back making music with the Slits and finishing that chapter.
We did various other London shows. Then we did a major American tour.
You're the best weapon you could possibly have. Is to kill them, yeah, kill them. Is to kill them with love.
It was so fun. It was just one of the happiest moments. It was like 7 women and we're all squeezed together in a tiny van, traveling all over America with suitcases, merchandise.
There was always something like really funny about everything that we were doing. It's like we were on a mission, you know?
And I think the band really started growing together because we were so confined. And I suppose for me, for Adele, for Dr. No, it was the first real tour ever.
Our friend Jen, who was our tour manager, documented it on film. Jen was doing like 4 jobs, driving, filming, collecting the money.
It was really special for me just to be with women like that. It had been a long time since I'd just been around a lot of women, so a lot of conversations took place that didn't happen with other bands.
The age differences in the audience were really interesting because you had young teenage girls. And I think this is really what made Ari and Tessa so happy and proud, because they realized that the Slits are living on.
I think she felt like the Slits didn't really get to finish what they started, and so she wasn't looking back trying to recreate anything. She was just trying to continue and move forward.
She lit up the stage. When she got on stage, she had the entire audience in the palm of her hand.
She just radiates energy like the sun. I mean, basically, she had the same amount of energy as our sun.
Sing about my legs again! She got legs!
And you left her feeling that you could conquer the world. All the barriers came down. She was like some kind of mad drug.
Where are they going? It's a regular night in Atlanta. What can I say? It's Atlanta. Are you recording?
Yeah.
Are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
You got my butt?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. This is how the Slits need to pee when we're on the road. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Set. Go.
Yeah.
I loved being in the room with Ari because chaos ensued, and that excites me. I get along well with people like that because they push me to work really hard and they remind me to fight for everything I want to do and be. So I loved being around her because I love the chaos.
You know, Ari was a very complicated person, except for one thing. She always spoke her mind completely.
You know that song, there's a Slits song that we have on Return of the Giant Slits, that underrated, fantastic, brilliant, mythological, legendary album that no one knows. Anyway, they need to know there's this song called Difficult Fun on it.
I think for Ari, it wasn't about being liked at all. It was about being honest. And so she gave you what she thought you needed, and you had to take it or leave it.
You look absolutely fantastic. You're back in your field, man. This is what you're born to do. You're born to perform. A Slits, born to perform. Taurus and Capricorn.
Ari's and Tessa's relationship is really interesting because Tessa was really grounded and down to earth and definitely a feeling person. She was kind of humble and didn't want to pester anyone, and maybe too humble also, you know. She would always say, oh, I can't play bass, and oh, I'm just rubbish. But what was wonderful is Ari was the one always saying, Tessa, what are you talking about? You are an amazing bass player. And she would encourage her on stage and say, this is Tessa, the bass player. Listen to the bass line, and made her play it alone. And so in some ways, Ari picking Tessa up, making her more confident. And then also Tessa being a moderator to Ari almost, because she would be the one telling her, shut up. She would be brave like that and just put her right. And so they were kind of helping each other.
It was Ari's initial plan to make a film. She's felt our story had still not been told.
I filmed everything. We were making a movie. Ready, go! Ari was directing it, so it was chaos and mayhem. Ari was obsessed with filming everything.
Look at the slits! Slits! The desert!
I don't know if she knew the clock was ticking. In retrospect, I think she did, because she would say things like, I don't have this much time, and was screaming at us to film everything.
Oh, God! I'm alone in New Mexico!
Ari Up was very dramatic. So if Ari says she's sick, I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's really serious or if it isn't.
I only got $20. Oh my.
I recall distinctly when she was pushing me to do something with this footage we were shooting. She said, I don't have a lot of time, and laughed. And I laughed too and said, yeah, me neither. She said it a few times on the road, I don't have that kind of time. I now think it was because she knew.
It was difficult because people were lived in different countries, but we somehow communicate back together and did various little tours, like European tours, went back to America, and finally recorded our album, Trapped Animal, in Los Angeles. So as we were there, we just recorded the album. Let's do the video.
Don't wake me, just take me, yeah, take me. Don't wake me, don't wake me, just take me, yeah, take me and make me feel you inside when you...
Ari and Tessa always wanted the young new recruits to really be an equal part, and so they wanted everybody to contribute.
So I wrote one of my first proper songs and recorded it with the Slits. I was kind of really shy about stuff like that. And the thing that was always really cool about Ari was that she didn't ever really make things a very big deal. Like, she was always so casual, like, oh, you know, and you can play keyboards now. And I was all like, oh, no, I don't think I can. And she was like, just play it. She gave me so much confidence. More than anything, she just made things seem really doable.
Ari has always got songs busting out of her. She's just so full of energy and got so many ideas. She forced me to write a melody to the lyric I'd written. Something came out of my mouth. And I was like, wow, I can write a melody if I really push myself. It was just easy, it was just really fun. We just used the environment we were in. And I think it's hilarious, I love it.
La, 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 la. Hated by many, loved by a few. Demons around you, repaired by the view. Hated by many, loved by a few. When you live by your rule. Hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it.
The very last tour was in 2010, and they were set up nice and correct with proper promoters and, you know, the nice sort of surroundings, and you know, that was really good.
By that point, you know, we were in the swing of things. We've been together for a few years, we've done the album, played a lot. I had some really good shows actually on that tour.
It was really, really wonderful in that way, but in terms of the group dynamic, it was actually the worst.
The final tour we did, which was a tour of Europe, I'm not sure if she's ill or she's not ill. I just find her acting very strangely on the tour. She seems to need to rest a lot more.
Adele had left the band. We didn't have Nadia at that point. There was a lot of different tension going on when we did that one. Ari was sick and we didn't really know. Well, we did know, but we didn't really know.
She seems a bit changed. furious every morning. She's 1 minute having a go at the tour manager, then having a go at Anna, the drummer, then having a go at me, and we're like, fuck you, or fuck you, or fuck you.
Ari was famous for having fits with people and thinking they were evil and, you know, telling them to go away. But she would always protect her family and her own group. But on this tour, she was like totally turning against Tessa, for example. She was obviously struggling with something. And I remember after this tour that I thought, this is the last tour for me.
I speak to Holly and Anna and just think, I'm just feeling they want to get on with their own thing. I'm just saying, look, if you need to do your own music, just go ahead and do it, don't worry.
It felt really, really sad when it was over. It felt so sad that I didn't want to do it anymore, unfortunately. Oh God, I get emotional. I knew I was going to get emotional, fuck's sake. Oof. Yeah. We decided to talk to Ari. We knew that we kind of had to just stop for a while anyway.
And I think that we decided that Tessa was going to be the messenger, the happy messenger.
We all come back and I invite Ari over to my flat because we've discussed just saying to Ari, we need a break. Something's just not right. And I tell her this and she's traumatized, she's distraught, and she leaves and we don't speak to each other again. So I was in touch with Nora because I started to become extremely worried. I was panicking and I was crying on the bus, suddenly in shock, realizing, oh my God, I think Ari's dying. And then I spoke to Nora and she said, I think you better come over. She's been told she's got 2 weeks to live. But then when we get there, Nora said, Ari appreciates you've come. She's really sorry she can't see you. She's on a really personal journey. And so we just all go, we're just like in total shock. We don't know what to do. We just all sit on this bench outside, just like shaking and just not being able to speak. I think she must have known how ill she was and that she was maybe pushing us away to protect our feelings. And I think she was terrified herself. I think she was scared. I saw that look of fear in her eyes that I'd never seen before. And then I get this phone call at like 2:30 in the morning telling me the bad news. Because Ari had this thing that she just wanted to help people. She just wanted to get the best out of you. She could just see the potential in you, and she got really disappointed if she felt you were messing that up or throwing away what you could be fantastic at. She came back into my life with such a force and made me believe in myself again, that I had some kind of treasure that's really precious. It's like I feel like I've lost my right arm in a way. It's kind of eased off in the last year a bit, but the first 2 years, I just fell apart, really. I feel so much stronger and happy to be in this period of my life. So much more clear-headed, and I just don't care anymore about the bollocks in life, you know. I feel like I'm learning to let go.
When I look back at the Slits, I feel like I'm glad that I did what I did. It couldn't have been any other way, really, because who I was and who they were. So my punk experience has helped me to not just play the party line, to be able to say, wait a minute. Just because they say, okay, now you have to believe this, you can never put that down. You are who you are. And if you have doubts, that's healthy. And if you don't understand something, that's good, go for it, study it. Follow what you think is true. Be careful also with groups. Whether it's a church or it's a government or it's a professional group, don't lose yourself in the group. I recommend to be free. Freedom comes from inside, not from a certain look or anything exterior, be it religion or being in punk. In either way, freedom comes from your own heart.
After the Slits decided to split, I went from having an identity to absolutely nothing overnight. No one was interested in me. It was just blank eyes. Loneliness of the long distance. And I felt right back to being an invisible woman again. And that was very sobering. It's given me all the drive that I've got now. I've come back and I'm making music again and writing, etc. I'm still as angry and fueled, and I'm still that girl who was in the Slits, but now I'm the woman who was in the Slits. The Slits were that. All us four girls were that person. We were those people. We were those rebels. And we still are. We still are.
I can't tell you how restricted life was for young women in the 1970s. It was horrible. It was like when you were born, right? And you come out of the womb and you're screaming and you're flinging your arms and legs around and it's life. As you grow up as a girl, your arms get folded in, your legs get folded in, this happens. So you're constantly trying to find a place where you can go, where you can be noisy, where you can fling your arms and legs around, where you can wear what you want, where you can not care. What the Slits did was to completely untie all of those things. Where you say what you want, you express yourself, you make such a lot of noise that people have got to listen to you.
The Slits were two girls, too tough. They wouldn't allow anybody to stop them trying to make the music they wanted to make and make the statements they wanted to make.
If the Slits had not come along, there would be no Madonna. Without the Slits, these things would never have broken down.
The riot girl movement happened in the 90s. They weren't afraid to be rough or loud. They were inheriting something from the Slits.
That's one of the charms of the Slits. It's all about discovering who you could be if you unshackled yourself. That's not to say that they found it easy and they just steamed in. It was hard and they went through a huge amount of very depressing experiences. But the fact is they got through it and they fought through it.
It's not a struggle that goes away. The struggle always continues. You have to go into it saying, it's not like I don't want to be popular and sell records, but there's a sense in which I'm not here to be liked.
Don't believe when somebody says that you can't do something, because that's not true. If you have a passion, go for it. That's the only thing that makes a better world.
Don't be afraid of what you believe in. If you believe in something, you have to stand up for your convictions and be counted.
If you have something that you really, really want to communicate and a sound that you hear, insist on it. And don't expect to be popular, but just stick to it. It will give a meaning to your life. Ari never really left that front line, no matter how much they fought against her.